It's the second Friday of the month, just trying to make it sound like we're halfway through January. It is still, yes, not way halfway through January. It is the 11th of January. Thank you for joining us for NTV Weekend Edition, our top focus.
After a long hiatus, Deputy President William Ruto speaks out.
There will be no negative, ethnic, divisive politics based on hate.
And he wants others to watch what they say.
That is not an issue we can compromise.
Also tonight, a man of the people or just a populist after short-term gains.
Yoyote kati ya hawa ambaye anajua anakuja afanye ufisadi, afadhali asichukue hii position.
A look inside the chaotic Nairobi County administration.
Also ahead,
people started complaining of diarrhea and nausea or feeling like vomiting.
How meat turned poison for 52 mourners in Bomet.
Plus,
I offered my unqualified apology to the president.
A generous helping of humble pie served cold to Moses Kuria.
12 ballots. This is 2019.
We are dealing with a serial blackmailer, roaming around with abandon, with state machinery, looking for who to destroy next.
Plus love and hate served in equal portions at City Hall. The week's good, the bad, and the ugly as captured by Bullseye. It's the top of the hour, time for the top bulletin in town. Thank you for joining us. My name is Masai.
I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Tonight, our sign language interpreter is Flora Atieno.
Our top focus, Deputy President William Ruto is back after a brief interlude and speaking out for the first time amid the political storm in his own party. The Deputy President is warning others to watch what they say.
Ruto says the country's unity cannot be compromised and has hit out at those doubling down on the divisive rhetoric. NTV's Mel Miendo is working on that story and will bring it to us shortly. Well, the current political impasse has brought back from the cold former politicians who've now waded into the political debate and offered their support for the president and his unity pact with ODM's Raila Odinga, perhaps with the hope that they will catch his eye.
The leaders, who say they still enjoy massive support in the grassroots, also said they would support a referendum to change the system of governance. Our political affairs reporter, Kennedy Muredi, reports.
The recent political crisis in Mount Kenya region has brought former political foes back together and standing on common ground.
Okay.
But it may have also brought back from oblivion politicians who lost in previous elections and who have now jumped at the chance to be back on the national limelight. Former elected leaders are now pledging loyalty only to the president at a time it's being considered paramount.
It is our wish that the handshake between our President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Omolo Odinga, the former Prime Minister, should be cascaded into law to create opportunities for a more inclusive and cohesive government. And FOPA, as a countrywide presence, is ready and willing to lead in this agenda.
The handshake will stay, will be there, and that is why we are saying we are going to a referendum to change the constitution of this country, whether they like it or not.
The over 20 politicians who addressed a news conference argue for the need for the government to be reorganized, even as some showered the government with praise for offering them jobs.
We are gathered here today to tell the president that there is a traitor in his government.
Ukienda kwa katika record za IBC, sisi tuliweza kupata zaidi ya kura milioni 10. Wale wanakaa hapa, najipatiana mfano kama mimi, napeana mfano kama mimi, nilipata kura 68,000.
The question on whether they are looking for political relevance has featured prominently, even as they come out to insist that they are leaders of this country and their voices must be heard.
As FOPA Association Kenya, we respect for the president. The president is a symbol of national unity and nationhood.
We find that the president then and the president today are two different people. The president today is a serious nationalist, a serious patriot, a leader who wants to see every corner of this country taken care of.
In a clear blow to those supporting Deputy President William Ruto, the politicians also called for toning down of the numerous trips across the country in the name of development.
IEBC should open their eyes and open their ears and take action as they have been given the powers in the electoral laws and as per the constitution, unless it is a by-election.
Governors from the Mount Kenya region have also come out to defend the region's development record, arguing that much has been done in their regions through consultations with the national government.
Each governor in the Central Kenya region, and I'm sure the governors here will state their parts, we all have numerous projects that have been implemented, all are about to be implemented ahead of 2022 and even beyond 2022.
Mheshimiwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta ni rais wa Kenya. Hata kama hakuchaguliwa Kisumu, watu wa Kisumu ni wa Kenya. Kweli ama urongo? Hata kama hakuchaguliwa Mombasa, watu wa Mombasa ni watu wa Kenya.
Now to some county politics, rather administrative concerns. Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko has today named his new cabinet following the resignation of a number of officers of the county, which has been operating at half capacity.
But as NTV's Silas Apollo reports, the announcement is a culmination of the chaos that has marred the city-county and which critics now warn could greatly affect the delivery of services to city residents.
To the legend of his supporters, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko is a man of the people, always in touch with their day-to-day needs. But to his critics, he is a populist leader, only interested in short-term gains. His campaign was pegged on a promise to work smarter than his predecessor, Evans Kidero, and make Nairobi a livable and a thriving city. But much of that promise is yet to be realized if the happenings at the City Hall are anything to go by. At least half of workers have either been suspended or sent packing for being lazy, alleged corruption, traveling abroad without permission, and working with the enemies. Until today, the governor has been running his cabinet with half of the positions vacant due to his random suspension and sacking of county executives. Former county executive in charge of education Janet Ouko painted a picture of the chaos at the City Hall as she left her post. In what has degenerated into a war of words between her and her boss, Governor Sonko hit back again, accusing Ouko of corruption.
Wale mawaziri wote nimefuta sababu ya niko na evidence ya wao.
Not forgetting the resignation of his deputy Polycarp Igathe, who threw in the towel barely 4 months into office. And in what is expected to be a longer wait, Sonko yet again deferred naming his replacement.
This seat does not belong to Sonko. It belongs to the great people of Nairobi, and it is a jubilee seat. I have to consult widely my party bosses, both the president, the deputy president, the party leadership, and all the other leaders in Nairobi City County, plus the great people of Nairobi City County themselves.
Sonko has also turned into MCAs he perceives as critics of his administration, culminating into an on and off relationship with the county assembly. But he has before and even now remained adamant that his administration was in control, contrary to the opinion of critics. And to compensate for the shortcomings of his administration, Sonko has at times resorted to populist moves, from the ban of matatus from the city centre, but which he lifted a day later, to today's announcement of the reduction of parking fees in the county. And today, the county chief announced a new lineup of his cabinet.
Waziri Lucia Mulwa ni waziri mpya wa elimu, youth, gender, sports, culture, social services. Dr. Stella Bosire Otieno, waziri wa health. Wilfred Gadhangu, waziri wa finance, economic planning. Pauline Kahiga Waititu, waziri wa public service, management na devolution. Sanjeev Kaur Bardi, waziri wa mazingira ama environment. Hawa ni wapya. Wamama tupu nimeleta wamama 5. Ndio wamama waone pia Nairobi County tunajali haki zao.
that as critics continue to opine that the king is slowly becoming naked, Governor Sonko has vowed to continue with his leadership style, and true to his words, he's been clearing his cabinet of people he says have been disloyal to him. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Elsewhere, by-elections in Embakasi South and Ugenya constituencies will be held on the 5th of April.
The two seats were declared vacant on January 7th after the Supreme Court nullified the victories of MPs Christopher Karan for Ugenya and Julius Mawathe for Embakasi South on grounds that they were not validly elected.
Now, former Ugenya MP David Ochieng challenged the victory of Christopher Karan, while former Embakasi South MP Irshad Sumra successfully petitioned against Mawathe's election.
Orange Democratic Movement Party, ODM, has indicated that it will stick with Christopher Karan as their candidate for Ugenya. The ODM's candidate will fight it out with Ochieng of Movement for Democracy and Growth Party, MDGP.
And in Embakasi South, a tough battle is likely to be replayed between Irshad Sumra of ODM and Julius Mawathe of Jubilee. Parties have been the 4th and 5th of February nominated their candidates. And just to reconfirm that the parties have between the 4th and 5th of February to nominate their candidates.
To some health concerns, and 52 people have been admitted at Longisa Hospital in Bomet after feasting on meat at a funeral in Tabok village in Bomet Central.
While health officials at the hospital suspect that it may be a case of food poisoning.
Longisa Hospital in Bomet was unusually busy for the entire day as doctors and health officers attended to the 52 patients who are currently recuperating at the facility. Among those admitted are 29 women, 9 men and 14 children. The villagers are said to have fallen ill moments after feasting on meat when they attended a funeral at Tabok village in Bomet Central.
We had an incident of food poisoning, what we suspect as food poisoning. People started complaining of diarrhea and nausea or feeling like vomiting.
Tuliposiba tulikaa saa kidogo nasikia tumbo anakuruma. Sasa nawaza kuuma sisi. Natoka saa hiyo wakati nakwenda nje.
Currently, the county health officers have mobilized a surveillance team to monitor the situation in the area. All the patients are said to be in stable condition. Vincent Odur, NTV.
And still on health matters, the county government of Narok has banned hawking of foodstuffs in a bid to prevent the spread of what is suspected to be a cholera outbreak that has killed 2 people and seen 54 others admitted in the last 3 days.
The announcement through the Ministry of Health indicated that the ban would remain in force until the disease is contained.
21 people have so far been treated and discharged, but 33 others are still admitted at the Narok County Referral Hospital. The hospital received 16 new cases this afternoon.
One other case was reported in Narok Town and another in Mosiro in Narok East. The County Director of Health said the outbreak could be attributed to residents' use of contaminated water. Quick recovery to those in Narok and also those in Bomet. To our top story, and Deputy President William Ruto has early announced is back after a brief interlude and speaking out for the first time. Amid the political storm in his own party, the Deputy President is warning others to watch what they say.
Ruto says the country's unity cannot be compromised and has hit out at those doubling down on the divisive rhetoric. NTV's Mel Miendo reports.
Deputy President William Ruto waited out the storm stirred in his own party in his rural Sugoi home, where today he met religious leaders. Emerging from the fog of uncertainty about the unity of his party, the Deputy President had a stern warning against those spreading hate and doubling down on the political rhetoric.
That is not an issue we can compromise.
Ruto, who spoke for the first time in a long time, wants other leaders to now watch what they say.
It doesn't matter who wins or loses what election. This region and our country will become peaceful. We will live peacefully. The politics of ethnicity and hate and division are retrogressive. They have no place in the Kenya of today.
The House of Jubilee has been rocked by a heated political banter that mostly centered around the 2022 succession politics and his place in it. Ruto, however, is preaching peace and unity, a message that he wants all Kenyans to embrace.
Good people, we must build a big army of men and women, of politicians, the clergy, to stand up against the politics of hate, ethnicity.
Politics and the church go together because they're the same people. And that is, we may not always agree with everything, but you have our support.
At the same time, Ford Kenya leaders criticized the manner in which the ruling Jubilee Party members had handled the divisions within it and called for reason in addressing the escalating wrangles. They too are calling for politics of unity.
Tumeona watu wa Jubilee wameanza kelele. Hiyo chama ni yao. Sisi hatuingilii mambo yao, lakini nataka kuambia Kenya inahitaji amani.
Miendo, NTV.
Now, a 50-year-old veterinary officer who allegedly impregnated a Standard 7 pupil in Baringo North has been arraigned in court.
It is believed that the girl's father asked Solomon Cherutich to treat his livestock, and he impregnated the girl when she assisted in sterilizing equipment.
Cherutich denied committing the act and asked to be released on a 200,000 shilling bond with a surety of a similar amount. The Baringo County Children's Department is being accused of negotiating an out-of-court deal.
The case will be mentioned on the 23rd of this month. Women leaders are demanding the swift prosecution of the suspects accused of defiling a 13-year-old girl from Homa Bay County.
The Cabinet Administrative Secretary for Gender, Rachel Shebesh, led the calls as she led a visit by female legislators at a Nairobi hospital where the girl is awaiting to undergo surgery tomorrow.
NTV's Brenda Wanga reports.
For over 1 week now, the 13-year-old girl hasn't uttered a word. The events of last Thursday is still too fresh and traumatizing to verbalize.
There's definite evidence that somebody used a sharp object to cut her after or before the defilement on her genitals.
The doctors at Homa Bay, the first ones to attend to her, had tried to repair that tear.
Repair had been done in Homa Bay Level 5 hospital, but has given way. So we need to clean up the area and make sure it has no infection before we go in for reconstruction.
That surgery is likely to take place on Saturday, setting the young girl onto her path to recovery, at least physically. The emotional and psychological scars will take much longer to heal, but the hospital says it will walk the whole journey with the girl and her family.
Cases of gang rape or defilement have been steadily increasing over the years, and this facility says that this girl's case is just one of the thousands they receive each year.
Most of the cases are children. 45% of them are usually children and 54% are women.
then the rest are boys and men.
Indeed, the statistics are grim. The hospital registered 1,623 cases of sexual assault last year. Of these, 733 were female children, 716 were male children, while 114 were female adults and 60 male adults. And these are just the numbers of those who accessed medical care in the wake of the assaults. It is this situation that now a section of women leaders want arrested.
The same level of enthusiasm we are seeing in this country as far as corruption now is concerned is the same level of enthusiasm we must see as far as sexual and gender-based violence is concerned. And as members of parliament, this is our front.
And law enforcers, Bwana Matiang'i, tunajua sisi hatuwezi kushika mtu, lazima ni askari wako, maofisas wako wataweza kufanya kazi kama hilo.
We must work together as a government. We are frustrated at the slow pace of arrests, for example. 7 days, you cannot tell me, you cannot have found in a village, in an area where, I mean, it's not rocket science. You know, if you can find Al-Shabaab, you can find who violated mercy. I'm 100% sure. I'm sure you can.
The legislators want the Inspector General of Police to ensure that those who commit such acts are dealt with in accordance with the law.
One of our biggest disappointments is that every police station is supposed to have a gender desk.
Towards this end, they want the restoration of the gender desks at all police stations, as well as the full implementation of the Sexual Offences Act. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Pole sana to a young girl, and we certainly hope she gets all the help she requires at this traumatic time. And of course, not just in front of the cameras, but that these leaders will continue pushing for justice to be served. It's 19 minutes past the hour. We take a short break. NTV Weekend Edition will be back shortly.
Thanks for staying with us. Residents of Njoro are now calling for the arrest of former area MP Joseph Kuna for allegedly uttering insightful statements in the wake of the killing of a resident yesterday.
The demand comes after a video of the former legislator, you probably saw this one, stating that he knew that the murder was planned, circulated widely. They accuse him of using the skirmishes witnessed yesterday to further his political ambitions.
The residents say they fear that the former MP's utterances had the potential of disrupting the peace that has been in existence in the area for a long time.
They now want the Director of Public Prosecutions and the DCI to take up the matter and ensure such utterances are not made again, especially in a violence-prone region. Elsewhere, Dennis Kibet was hoping to join Lenana School for his secondary education, but he is now in hospital nursing stomach and leg injuries after he was hit by a motorbike and the driver fled, or the cyclist fled. This is one of the many cases where people are injured or even killed by rogue boda operators.
Well, they are responsible for several accidents on the road due to a lack of indiscipline. And as Dennis's family hopes for financial aid to settle his bill, they, like many Kenyans, hope that the Interior Ministry will fast-track the much-needed policies to regulate the sector.
14-year-old Dennis Kibet, once a spirited and vibrant teenager, fights to cling to his fleeting youth at the Metropolitan Hospital's high dependency unit. He goes through the paces with his doctor on his hospital bed, warding off his persistent pain, but thankful that at least he is alive and on the path to recovery after suffering a near-fatal injury at the hands of a boda operator Tuesday this week.
Nilikuwa nimecross na nilikuwa nimefika kanda barabara. Saa kidogo pikipiki kanigonga nikaanguka. Saa na sikuona kitu kingine tena.
The hit and run took seconds, with the boda operator speeding off into the wind, and it was a lady who witnessed the accident who rushed him to the nearest clinic, reaching out to Kibet's father after the boy came to and gave her his contact.
Wakamfungia mtoto kwa mguu, wakaekea plasta kidogo, wakatuambia twende nyumbani turudi Thursday. Kufika kwanza kwa nyumba, tukapata mtoto usiku mzima alilia tumbo. Kwa hapo sasa tukaona lazima tumpeleke mtoto hospitali.
With a ruptured spine which needed urgent surgery, he had to undergo another surgery to fix 2 broken bones on his left leg.
Bila tu sasa tungeweza kupeleka pale pengine juu ilikuwa emergency na atungekuwa na namna nyingine. Sasa usuri hospitali walitusikia, wakakubali wa admit mtoto wa mtibu, baadaye tulipe pesa yenye hatuna.
Generally the boy is stable, but he will still need to be in the hospital for the next few days to be able to complete his course of antibiotic prevent infection, as well as manage pain, as well as do physiotherapy on the leg. Usually after surgery you mobilize as soon as possible, but we haven't mobilized yet because he still has pain.
Doctors here say that out of every 10 trauma cases they receive, 8 are motorcycle related. Kibet's case paints an ominous picture of the boda carnage that has at many times claimed lives, cases that the NTSA now says are becoming higher by the day. As the industry remains largely untamed, the rate of death and injury soars amid a blatant disregard of traffic rules and lack of safety regulations. In the first 3 days of 2019, 9 people have had to seek treatment for serious boda related injuries.
This battle is not going to be won by enforcement. It is going to be won if, as citizens of this country, we change our behavior. Because there is no point of me observing the law because somebody is looking at me.
Without a doubt, the boda industry has brought changes to the lives of many young Kenyans who eke out a living every single day from the business. But then again, the thousands of Kenyans who are either maimed or die out of accidents caused by rogue boda operators is something that many are worried about, and they hope that the task force that was formed by CS Fred Matiang'i will have policies soon enough to regulate the sector. Leila Mohammed, NTV, Nairobi.
Oh, we certainly wish Dennis Kibet a speedy recovery and certainly hope that he does get to join Lenana School. All right, let's cross borders for a moment and watch as a bus driver in Milwaukee in the
Time to do business. 2.1 trillion shillings, and that is the amount that the government will target to raise in the next financial year, up from this year's 1.9 trillion shillings. The revenue target for this year has, however, been reduced by 5% to 1.85 trillion shillings, according to the just released draft budget policy statement. Members of the public have up to the 25th of this month to make comments on the framework guiding the government's planned revenue mobilization and expenditure strategy for the next 3 years. You can log on to the website and make your comments there. There is a growing call on government agencies tasked with clearing imported goods to promptly resolve the issue of the persistent shortage of tampons in the Kenyan market. And this hygiene product, said to be in short supply for the last 6 months, have forced consumers to dig deeper into their pockets for alternatives. Lilian Kiare will be giving us a bit more on the concerns from the market and what is going to be done to resolve the same. The shareholders of Kenel Cobil are set to receive offer documents from the French firm Ruby Energy from Monday next week, following the planned takeover of the listed oil marketer. This follows the green light for the buyout of the firm from relevant regulatory bodies, including the Capital Markets Authority, the Competition Authority, and the Competition Commission of the Comesa region. Now, the Kenel Cobil share price closed Friday's trade at 19 shillings and 20 cents, 26% higher than it did on the day the proposed takeover was made public in October 2018. Ruby Energy is making an offer of 23 shillings per share, which is set to close on February 18th this year. The board of Kenel Cobil has approved the takeover. Let's get a bit more details on how you can comment on the 2.1 trillion shillings. That is the amount the government will target to raise in the next financial year, up from this year's 1.9 trillion shillings. Let's give you a bit more facts on that. The revenue target for this year has, however, been reduced by 5% to 1.85 trillion shillings, according to the just released draft budget policy statement. Members of the public, that is you, have up to the 25th of this month to make comments on the framework guiding the government's planned revenue mobilization and expenditure strategy for the next 3 years.
The government is projecting to increase its revenue collection to 2.1 trillion shillings in the financial year starting July 2019, even after revising downwards revenue projections for the ongoing financial year by 5%. This is set to put the Kenya Revenue Authority on the spot as it seeks to seal revenue leakages and widen the tax base. So far, the authority has faced an uphill task in its quest to raise revenue from small and medium enterprises, especially those in the informal sector. Of interest, concern over recurrent spending taking up the lion's share of Kenya's expenditure is set to remain a teething problem, with the draft proposal projecting its share rising from 61% in the current financial year to 63% by June 2022. In this regard, the National Treasury foresees the proportion of revenue taken up by the public wage bill standing at 28% in the current financial year, before scaling it down to 23% by June 2022. As for the country's debt position, the National Treasury is optimistic that it will scale down the public debt as a percentage of gross domestic product from the present 61% to 53% by 2020. This expectation is pegged on the assumption of a more frugal government which focuses only on priority spending, although that seems easier said than done. The share of the national budget to be taken up by devolved governments is projected to decline from the present 12% to 11.4% by 2022, but this does not mean that the money disbursed to the counties annually will reduce. The key question here will be how devolved governments strengthen their own revenue mobilization measures without adopting levies and fees that undermine the business environment, as some have opted to. Julians Amboko, NTV.
As mentioned earlier, there is a growing call on government agencies tasked with clearing imported goods to promptly resolve the issue of the persistent shortage of tampons in the Kenyan market. The hygiene products said to be in short supply for the last 6 months have forced consumers to dig deeper into their pockets for alternatives, some of which have spiked in price due to increased demand. Here's Lillian Kiare with more.
For women who thought that the intermittent supply of tampons was a short-lived issue, the frustration they have has escalated because of the persistency of the problem. Suppliers of the tampons such as Radbon Clark Kenya have blamed the shortage of the product to the slow movement of goods at the port of Mombasa, pointing a finger at the strict inspection procedures in clearing goods that were introduced last year.
And now I'm wondering, what are we going to be using? I mean, ideally, sleep is when we would use sanitary pads. But when it comes to tampons, those are lifesavers.
They were set to curb the inflow of fake products that flood the market and which are harmful to the unsuspecting public. The notice informed the public that from the 1st of October, all imported goods require to undergo mandatory inspection in the country of origin. The additional layer of bureaucracy, though put in place with good intent, is now causing end users of products such as tampons to suffer the shortages, which have destabilized the budgets of many households. The Kenya Revenue Authority, which works alongside other agencies charged with clearing goods at the port, has in the recent past been criticized by traders for detaining their containers, leading to massive losses in revenue. NTV reached out to KRA and the Kenya Bureau of Standards on the matter. KRA said it was investigating the supply shortfall, while a KEBS official said they'd get back to us, but had not done so by the time of airing this report. Lillian Kiarie, NTV.
The county government of Laikipia has raised its year-on-year local revenue collection by 36% in the 6 months ending December 2018 to 286 million shillings. According to the county government, among the revenue streams that have shown significant improvement include land rates, which have improved from 6.4 million shillings to 21.3 million shillings. Parking fees have also reported strong growth from 23.7 million shillings to 33.8 million shillings. A number of counties have introduced technology to enhance revenue collection, while business leaders complain that others have introduced additional taxes that are detrimental to business. And that's it from the business desk. We'll be back with more on NTV Weekend Edition.
Welcome back. Now, Kenyan politicians just love to eat, don't they? Well, when they're not eating taxpayers' money, it's the proverbial humble pie they're gobbling in large quantities.
It's all about principles, a lack of them mostly, with positions shifting as quickly as they are taken. The war within Jubilee is on, and as Emmanuel Juma reports on Bullseye, many of those who are gathering to pick the spoils.
Ai? Nyinyi hamuelewi?
That's true, sir. We never understand. No wonder we are easy to confuse and manipulate. Just look at this.
Mount Kenya region must claim its rightful share of development in the country within the remaining 4 years of this current administration.
And then
President Kenyatta's constitutional mandate requires him to develop the whole country without any form of bias or discrimination.
Then there was Moses.
Hii mambo kazi yetu ni kupiga kura. Baada ya kupiga kura, maendeleo tunapatiana kwingine. Hiyo ujinga tuache.
Followed by this.
Kusema ati kwa sababu mtu ametoka pahali fulani, ati kusema maendeleo itaelekezwa pahali fulani. Kwa hivyo hawa washenzi wawachane na mimi.
That's when Moses couriered large portions of humble pie to parliament buildings, and it was served cold.
I offered my unqualified apology to the president for any hurt and misconception that my words may have created.
That was a large helping of humble pie you took, Moses.
Okay, shoot. Wewe mnataka nini?
Tiring, confusing times even for a man like David. And yes, we'll never know what they take us for, even if we asked.
I have left the position.
And it will be said that David Murathe lefted, as WhatsApp users would say. But in the wake of the lefting, a battle rages. It's resurrection time, a resurrection of political careers and the race to rediscover that mojo. The race for relevance is on.
This is our wish.
She is back, and so is she and him.
They are running scared. Sisi tuliweza kupata zaidi ya kura milioni 10.
And him as well. The whole lot of them. But at City Hall,
My resignation as the CEC in charge of education.
But it turns out there was going to be no good in the boss's goodbye.
Taenda jela. Hakuna story nyingine. Hakuna martial shows na makatwalking wakati pesa imepotea ya umma.
This was the governor weeks earlier.
You just complimented Mr. Janet Auko. Let me also compliment her. She's one of the most hardworking CEC members in my government.
Please explain.
Ni one of my best ministers. Lakini kawaida yangu mimi leadership yangu sichanganyi kazi na urafiki.
We are dealing with a reckless ego roaming around with abandon, with state machinery, looking for who to destroy next to compensate for self-esteem deficiencies.
Whether you are a technocrat, whether you have a master's, then your boss, nobody is above the law.
And Rashid, how conversant are you with issues of immigration, especially where belly dancers are concerned?
Mimi ni waziri wa michezo jameni.
But how conversant are you?
And I want to tell Mzee Tuoli, you seem not to be conversed with the issues to do with immigration.
You heard the man, Francis.
Can you go and appoint Rashid Mohammed Echesa? Even if the world is dry of leaders, let's say the world is completely dry of leaders. Yeah? Let's go say completely the world is ending. Can you go and take Rashid Mohammed Echesa?
What a week.
Janet ni mzuri sana.
A week of second thoughts.
President then and the president today are two different people. The president today is a serious nationalist.
Somebody give us a term for all this.
That is lack of manners. Yes. Hiyo ni tabia mbaya.
Emmanuel Juma, Bullseye, NTV.
Bullseye, always a great way to end a Friday night.
Always hits the spot.
All right, next up, it's the sports news. Brian Otwal is driving that agenda.
2018. Athletes Eliud Kipchoge and Hellen Obiri are tipped to win this year's men and women's gong. So far, Hall of Fame inductees include Mohamed Keri, who is the former Harambee Stars and Bandari coach, if we can get those pictures so far from Mombasa, and Rose Tatamuya as the female inductee in the Hall of Fame. And school teams of the year include Kwale Girls, who have won the ladies title. Kwale Girls are the national and East African champions, as well as Laser Hill, who are the rugby sevens champions nationally and East Africa.
Rwanda. This saw her called up to the national under-20 team, where she played for the junior Malkia Strikers at the continental event.
Warota Kiru is in Mombasa and will be giving us full details of who won what in our subsequent bulletins tomorrow, as well as Top Spot, where we'll be discussing the victors of those awards in 2018.